Hello guys and welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be looking at a scenario where Kanzuk united in 2023. So this is actually a semi-possibility. I don't know if they'll ever formally unite into one country, but they are growing very close ties like they already have linguistically and culturally. In this video I'm going to first explain what will actually happen and then make a bit more of a fun scenario where they start expanding into kind of just a smaller British Empire. So here we have the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, all uniting into one union. As I said, they all speak English. They have modern historical ties. Obviously, if you go back way farther, Canada just had a bunch of tribes. Australia and New Zealand, maybe back to Polynesia you could go, back to just, once again, some of the people who lived there. But they are decently similar when it comes to how their countries run. British monarch, Commonwealth of Nations, stuff like that, are keeping them tied together. Besides that, in real life, this would be, I can't know for certain. It would either be the first or second largest country. If you combine Australia and Canada, who are some of the largest countries on Earth, and then add in the almost insignificant UK and New Zealand, they may be larger than Russia, and they may form up the number one largest country, or they may take the number 2 spot. For GDP, and I'm almost sure of this, they'd be number 3, in the number 3 spot, ahead of Japan and Germany, but still quite a ways behind China and the United States. It would most likely become either the 3rd or 4th most influential country in the world, number 1 USA, number 2 China, and then number 3 either Russia or Kanzuk. In real life, alright, let's see here. It would probably not do anything. It would have its own sphere of influence, maybe a few countries who it's allied with alone, but it would probably just be a second-class country to the United States. Besides that, it would, as I said, be an ally of the US. These are all American Western countries. They are all very developed. GDP per capita, probably around 50,000 somewhere. Like I said, this is all just going off of what I know about each country individually, but it would likely be around 50,000 per capita. Besides that, as I said, it wouldn't do much expanding in real life. It would just be there, help the US, influence some nations, and try and grow. So now enough with the boring part, all the facts, all of the 5-second explanation of what it would do in real life. Let's get into the interesting part, making it expand. First things first, they are going to go ahead and annex Greenland. Why would they do this? Well, why not? Denmark does originally say no, but they don't care. They just threaten them with invasion and they don't have a choice. From there, they also invade Iceland, and the UK invades Ireland. This is just to get themselves pretty much full control of the very far North Atlantic. Obviously, the US's Navy could still far outclass theirs, but if they can get a naval sphere between Canada and the UK looking something like this, then that's a good portion of the waters up here in the Northern Atlantic under their control. This is also quite separated, but they would most likely act independently, just helping each other out in any ways they'd probably have one government, but with multiple buildings in different countries, and some independent governments for each territory of Australia. For the UK, there would probably be, obviously, England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. Well, now it's just Ireland. Before, it would have been Northern Ireland, and there's the state of Iceland. Greenland, I doubt would be a state, not enough people there. It would probably just get put into, a Northern Territories. Then we have most of the Canadian territories would stick. Maybe Yukon and part of Nunavut would go together. Alberta and whatever that one's name is. And then Labrador, Newfoundland. For Australia, there would just be Western Australia. And this is about how Australia looks in real life. Yeah, they literally just made the lines for the borders. And New Zealand will only be one state, maybe they could be made into 2, North and South. But so that's besides the point. As I said, let's get into them expanding. Well, actually, they already have. Let's do that some more. Where are they going to go now? Well, where do you think? The UK's on it. And you know where the UK likes to go. they're gonna look down, look at Africa, and try and pick a spot. They need territories to connect up their countries. Obviously, you can go from Canada down through here to Australia and New Zealand. Or you could just ask the US to let you use their coast, stop in Hawaii, and go down from there. But they want to make that a bit easier. How are they going to do that? Well, a bit closer to Australia, they're going to take a bunch of islands, just all of these Pacific islands. They're also going to invade and annex Papua New Guinea. Why am I not going to show that? Because, well, we all know how that would go. Papua New Guinea would get absolutely obliterated. From there, they'll make a few colonies in Africa, one over here in Madagascar. And they also buy some of these French islands. As I said, they have the third largest economy. They can definitely do that. From there, they make a colony in, let's do Sierra Leone. I doubt they'd even want that. Let's do it in Togo. And from Togo, they expand to Benin and out into Ghana. Why? Because it's a nice little stop here next to Nigeria. And yeah, that might be helpful in the future. No reason. From there, they can also, maybe not Western Sahara, because Morocco would most likely see that as a declaration of war. But you know what? They don't care. They declare war on Western Sahara. And as I said, Morocco sees this as a declaration of war. With that, the UK gets their first ally, Algeria, who just wants to kill Morocco. So now Algeria is pushing out into Morocco, whilst the UK is just sitting there planning out a naval invasion. They can go like this or like this, and they decide why not do both. They make a landing in southern Western Sahara and one in Morocco. The Western Sahara one has some merit to it, I guess, but it's not that well defended, this land. Whereas this northern one in Morocco has most of the UK's armed forces in it. It meets up with Algeria, and Morocco and Western Sahara both fall. From there, they're split between the two of them, and Algeria is going to try and form up, maybe not a full-on empire, but they're going to get to expand here. The Moroccans, I don't know how they take this, but they don't really have a choice. Don't have a choice at all. From there, the UK is going to decide that they do need a foothold in Africa, and they're going to support Algeria. And yes, I'm calling it the UK. It is all of Kanzuk, which Canada and Australia are some pretty large members of. I don't know why I'm ignoring them. But up here, it is mainly the UK who's doing all the military stuff. Basically, Canzuk supports Algeria and the annexation of Tunisia. Why would they do this? Well, Canzuk wants a strong ally up here in Africa, and Algeria seems pretty stable for that. They just took over Morocco, so I don't know what I'm talking about with stable, but you know what's good enough. From there, Mauritania asks for some land, and Canzuk, deciding that it's better to have allies than a bit of random desert, decide to give it to them. So now they have barely any land over here in Morocco, but it can still work as a base. Why would they give this over? Well, as I said, they need Mauritania's help. They don't need it, but it's going to make their next war a lot easier. And when you have to choose between a bunch of random desert or another bunch of random desert, you pick a bunch of random desert. What's that next war? All of West Africa. Why would they do this? Because they're imperialist, and honestly, this is already unrealistic. Them uniting maybe in like 20 years from now realistic. Right now, probably not. But they're gonna expand, and as I said, the deal with Mauritania was, I give you a bunch of random sand, I get to move troops to your territory. So they're gonna push into Senegal from Mauritania, and out from their, I guess, colony in Togo and Benin. They also push into Burkina Faso. So they just got a whole lot more desert. Good for you. They then push into the Ivory Coast. I don't know all these countries' power rankings because they don't pop up very much when I'm looking at it. But if I had to guess, probably like Ivory Coast, Senegal, Liberia, Guinea? I don't know, but Ivory Coast is one of the stronger ones, and with Liberian forces, they're going to put up a defense. Sadly for them, they're up against one of the, probably at this point, top 5 militaries in the world, so they're getting rolled over. From there, Senegal and the Gambia don't really stand a chance, and they all surrender. So yeah, there goes more just Kanzuk being Kanzuk. Kanzuk taking after their good old father, the UK. So yeah, a bit of imperialism there, but they now control a lot of the West African coast. Actually, most of it. The only land left is in Mauritania, and they're actually going to do something with this Moroccan land. Turns out, Western Sahara was fighting for years for independence, and Canzuk is already looking a lot worse on the world stage. Obviously, taking over a bunch of countries who don't want to be taken over, not looked upon greatly. So what are they going to do? They're going to say, oh, we're such great people, and give Morocco definitely independence, and not just a puppet government under Kanzuk. No, of course not. They would never do that. They then form up an official alliance with Algeria, Mauritania, and the new Moroccan government. From here, they decide that it's time for their own sphere. They must no longer rely on the Americans. They need their own countries who look to them. So yeah, these are the first three in Morocco, Algeria, and Mauritania. They're hoping to set up a large sphere of influence in Africa, as the continent is set to grow a lot, and the UK is hoping that is true. From there, South Africa. Would they join? Would they be invaded? I'm going to say something a bit in between. Obviously, you don't want to be invaded, but their only other choice is join or die. So we're going to have them join. Not exactly join, but given some autonomy, they're let into a semi-union of sorts, where the militaries are the same, economies are interlinked, but the country itself has its own government and has its own representatives. From there, they continue to push around here in southern Africa, but eventually Namibia joins something new. Something that says that the UK is horrible. And now Africa is going to be split into two. Countries who ally themselves with the UK, and countries who want anything but Europe back in Africa. Which would most likely be most of them, but UK's already gotten themselves some allies, so some African countries say, hey, maybe they're not so bad this time. Maybe we should just join them. Malawi is not one of those countries, so they get invaded before they can join any alliance against the UK. And now more of Africa is looking like they want to join this other pact. What is it? Well, the East African Federation. Boop, 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 boop. Just expanding into the Central African Federation. As for the UK's influence, well, it's going to go a bit more like this. Boop, boop, boop. Probably, yeah, you, actually, no, not you, but you, and yeah, that's about it. So they have their own alliance, and these two are now fighting for power on the world stage. If this were just their alliances fighting, then the light green team would most likely be a tiny bit stronger. But sadly for them, Kanzuk's on the red team. So that's not going to go very well for you, but before it doesn't, Kanzuk decides to expand even more. They annex Mali, and they take over Cameroon, pushing down to Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, and the Congo. They skip around Nigeria, hoping to make it into an ally instead of an enemy. Nigeria just states that they want to be neutral and actually form up their own neutral coalition, which trades with everyone and is friends with everyone, but will still defend each other if one of them is invaded. Okay, what happens from here? Well, the UK needs some more influence in other areas, so they're going to go ahead and take over Suriname and Guyana, because that's just an easy way to get influence in the Americas, which they currently really want. The Americans make the American Defense Committee between themselves, Colombia, and Chile. So that's a, for now, minor but growing American alliance, and the UK knows this. So what do? They declare war on a bunch of people, because that's exactly what the UK loves to do. So now there's a bit of a fight between the Americans and the UK. On the American side, the French join in, and the Polish, Benelux stays neutral for now, but the Spaniards join, and the Italians join. So that's the American sphere going up against the British sphere, which the Germans join. As I said, all of North Africa's in it, along with a few new countries. Literally nobody, but still decently powerful. The DRC, not the DRC, the CAR, the CAR, the Central African Republic, also falls to complete British influence. Also, this video's getting pretty long. I should just stop it already, but let's go ahead and do a few things. I have a few things left to do, which is just more countries joining these spheres and a few more minor growth for Kanzuk. Next up on the UK side is Czechia, along with the Baltics, and a bunch more countries in Africa. In Africa, Libya joins, seeing as Algeria's in it, they think they can trust it. Egypt stays neutral for now, but Nigeria joins it, deciding to give up on neutrality. In the Americas, Peru joins it, along with Bolivia and Paraguay, whilst the rest of the continent is leaning more towards the Americans, except for Ecuador. As I said, as for the rest, aka Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil, they join the Americans. From there, Mexico joins the British, and the Americans still have the upper hand here, but the British are putting up a fight, especially with the Dutch joining them, along with the Slovakians and the Hungarians. Turkey joins them along with Bulgaria, as does finally Egypt and Saudi Arabia. So the British sphere is turning into Western people who would rather not be ruled over by the US. So all the Gulf countries now join. Israel decides, massive lines growing on my border, join the Americans and hope they protect you. The East doesn't know what's happening in the West. They're fragmenting completely. They might take advantage of this, but not quite yet. And now the Americans decide, UK, if you get land in Africa, so do I. So the Central African Federation and the United States team up. With that, the rest of these countries join the British sphere. And now Africa is divided. As for Asia, well, not a lot happens. The Indians join together with the British, which is amazing for them, as India was neutral, but they've been building up very good relations with the British. From there, Croatia, Bosnia, and Slovenia all join with the British. And this is where I'm going to leave this world map. Actually, no. First, British are going to do a few last small imperialist actions, aka take out Cuba, the Bahamas, just all of the Caribbean, obviously except for Puerto Rico. That's with the Americans. And we can look at what the Navy looks like in this world. Canzuk has grown to rival China, but they're not rivals with China, as China and the UK have a common enemy here, the United States. From there, the UK also takes over Venezuela, as they knew the Americans were going to do it sooner or later, and they wanted the oil for themselves. Alright, that's pretty much it. Their colonies stretch across the entire world, and the race in the West is now the UK versus the Americans, but with Africa involved. The East, as I said, would most likely take advantage of this to expand, but with the UK's faction growing into more and more countries, I don't know if the Americans can keep up. Even the Italians decide to pull in Italy and switch sides, and the UK tells Spain that they can have Gibraltar back if they join sides with them. Portugal also does so. So slowly but surely, America's allies are leaving them. This is never going to actually develop into a war, but it's more of a Cold War style thing, with Denmark joining the blue team. From there, down here in the Balkans, Greece is blue, Romania's red, and anywhere left in the world where I have to do this? No, not really. This is the world map now. The massive fight between the Americans and the British, just over who gets to control the West. The UK is now probably the third most powerful country in the world. I doubt they've overtaken China or the US. but their influence still stretches wide, and hopefully relations can be fixed. With that, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all next time. Bye.